Welcome to Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast. I'm your host, Chamber CEO Rachel Beld, and it's my privilege to interview the movers, shakers, and change makers impacting our amazing Vista community and beyond. Today's guest is Corinna Contreras, a Vista native, public policy advocate, and community champion. The first Latina and LGBTQIA+ council member in Vista's history, Corinna currently serves as the city council member for District 1. She brings a deep passion for sustainability, local food systems, and climate action. Corinna also works as a policy advocate for the Climate Action Campaign, holding local governments accountable and empowering communities across San Diego County. Welcome, council member. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. And I know a midweek appointment's always tough to stick in, so thank you for being here.
I wouldn't miss it.
Yay. Okay, great. So I want to ask you, before we dig into your work on the council, I want to ask really, what was it like growing up in our community? Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, you know what? The memories are so fond. It's just like a fountain of memories when and like just being here in downtown, I really, between where I live, where I walk around, and where I do council policy, I'm constantly seeing things that like a middle school child version of me would have never thought I'd be on this podcast. So, I grew up off of Foothill and Warmlands area. So I remember just like walking and having access to so much land.
It's a big open space over there.
Yeah, I mean, so my grandparents, they had a nursery. And it was kind of like, well, it was also a nursery for children because me and all my cousins grew up together. And as long as we stayed out, from where the customers were, we could, build forts and just go and play in the creek, which was mostly dry. That part of the creek is mostly dry most of the time. So I remember just amazing open space, right? And I also remember having a community that I think there was so much more potential for connection between folks. And I love how Vista is growing up. I mean, we incorporated in 1963. My family came here, in the 70s. I was born in the 80s. And, here we are, 2025, and to see the changes, it's just incredible. Some of the rural history that we have is gone, right? And so like, I really want to be able to preserve what we can, but we also have a growing population right here in Vista and throughout the region. So, building smart is really critical. So that way you can fill in connections between communities that feel a little bit dislocated from one another, even though they might just be across the street. Right. And so, yeah, I like the way that we've grown. I think there's still so much more to improve. And I'm so thankful for my community because it really takes a village to raise somebody. So there's like people that were just so impactful that were here in Vista. Some of them are still here. Right. We always think about teachers. We think about different mentors. So yeah, Vista's a great place.
So what was it? It sounds like you had this really impactful experience as a child, running around in big wide open spaces, having access to climb a tree, play in a creek, spend time outside, and having that freedom. Do you think that's where your love and care for the earth, sustainability, all of that, do you think that's where that was born?
It has to be a factor, right? I feel like,
because you didn't study that in college.
No, I didn't
pursue it.
You know why? Because I would have had to take like higher level mathematic courses, right?
I feel you.
So I did film and media studies and sociology, right? But I was always really interested in it. But I've always been interested in just like science, I've been interested in plants. Like being at that nursery, like my grandparents, I saw them propagate plants, right? And sell tons of ground cover and like things that, they weren't native plants. We didn't know anything about like native California plants, but in 2015, I took a permaculture certification course, and it was super cool to learn about all these amazing California native plants, right? And then I started looking at, different facets of, who were the first people here and like, how were they stewards of the land? And just learning more about that. I think it really, it is about playing in that creek. It is about building that fort, but it's also about like this love for nature and seeing, plants side by side, having a beautiful color palette. And it's like, it's just the creator's way of painting our earth. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, and I want to bring that out in my community because I know that there's so many people that really share that value.
Right. Well, so you've been a strong voice for sustainability and equity in Vista. And so what inspired you to really get involved in local government? Tell me about that journey.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, you have like this idea about government, right? And I feel like we're so disconnected from local government that a lot of what we learn is just at the national level. And that's kind of where I was.
I mean, like on the news.
Yeah. Right. On the news, very like top headlines, and then it's like, it's this whole other local government is just kind of lost on you, right? But it's like some of the most impactful things.
It touches you every day.
Yes.
If your sewer doesn't work,
right,
that's a problem.
Right. Or if you want a stop sign,
right,
and it's like, how do I get that done? If you want a sidewalk, how do I get that done? Like, I need a street light. Like, where's my little pocket park? Where's, some more tree canopy? Like, that is our local government. And so I was just inspired by Bernie Sanders in 2016. Like, I had worked while I was in Santa Barbara. I was on the board of a local nonprofit there. And so I saw a little bit of what local government was, but I wasn't plugged in all the way. And I don't think I had the maturity to like really see the connections as well. So I grew into that by just having a bunch of different experiences, right? So then by 2016, Bernie came here to Rancho Buena Vista High School. It was crazy.
That was crazy.
And I was like, what? I cannot pay attention to this like national level and just completely abandon learning anything about my backyard, because I went to my first council meeting in 2017, like January of 2017. And it just fascinated me. I was just completely fascinated because I said, you know what? There's some folks here I voted for, and all I did was get the pamphlet. I read their candidate statement, and then I was like, considering Vista, and I was like, okay, well, like my neighborhood and the neighborhoods around me, like they don't seem to be getting the infrastructure that they need, but I think we're doing fine. I think we're just a poor city, right? And so, okay, like I didn't investigate further. But when I went to my first council meeting, I saw the process of like how we can build a stronger, more united community that wasn't being filled by folks that were like navigating that for the community. Like it's difficult to explain, right? Like I was like, what is it that you're trying to do to make this community better? Right? Because we can always say like, hey, we want to, we want to have a certain idea for a city, but if it's only 5 people that are doing that idea, it's not going to be collective co-creation. And I think that's what I really was striving for. And so these are some terms that I only learned even recently,
sure,
right? And so it's like understanding how we can all build agency in ourselves and agency in other folks, and how we can bring to life a neighborhood that is safe, that is prosperous, and that is diverse, you know, and inclusive, and people feel like they belong, because everybody should feel that. But we're not at that stage yet. And so it's like, how do we continue? And it's just the American project.
Right.
You know, it's a more perfect union.
Well, I'm curious if there was a specific moment where you said, that's it, I'm running for council. Was there something specific that happened?
Yes. Well, you know, I had been going, I was just like fascinated by looking at an agenda and then seeing it play out in front of me. It's like this weird theater. And I was like, I feel like some of these characters are a little bit flat, and they don't have like this depth and connection to community. And so there was an instance where, you know, we had 2 unarmed Latinos that were killed by the same deputy in less than a year, right? So, you know, Jonathan Cornell had like 22 gunshot wounds in the back. Sergio Wick had like 17 gunshot wounds in the back. It just completely not okay. And so, you know, I joined just a very tiny protest. It's probably like 20 people max. Most of them were the family members that were left behind, right, from these 2 individuals. And we met at the Food for Less parking lot, you know, and I pull up and I immediately sense something's different. I'm like seeing like these different unmarked cars that are not cars that I'm familiar with people driving, right, and parking in this parking lot. And then we get a drone on us. Okay. And you got to understand that the courthouse and the county jail and the station is just up the street.
Right.
So, you know, we're marching. We went to the 2 spots that the individuals were killed, and they happen to be very, very close to each other. It's down Melrose. You know, one way's Copper. I forget the other way, what it's called. So we notice that as we start marching, there's a caravan of cars that are from the sheriff's department, and they're following us, and then there's a helicopter. So it really seemed unnecessary. You know, and even if you don't care about like people protesting, it's just like, are you okay using taxpayer dollars for this type of intimidation? And, you know, I don't think that's appropriate.
It sounds like it really moved you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's incredible to have that type of force. But that wasn't the only thing. As we were heading back to Food for Less, we were on Melrose, basically in front of where the fire station and Children's Paradise is. And all of a sudden, the caravan that was following us pulls over, and a whole bunch of deputies come out, and they have their baton, and they separate one of the individuals from our group. Turns out it was a mistaken identity. He didn't have a warrant for his arrest. But that's part of the intimidation that the community felt in just saying, we think there might be an injustice here, you know? And so we went back to Food for Less. We finally made it back. And we had a conversation, and we said, hey, listen, there's a council meeting on Tuesday. And, you know, I had been going to them, and I said, there's this place on the agenda called public comment, and maybe we should go, and maybe we should just express how we feel, right? So we did that. And there was a lot of folks that came and spoke, and, you know, there's a lot of anger a lot of sadness, a lot of hurt. Some people expressing, you know, those emotions maybe in words that I would never use. But some folks were just saying, hey, what about my neighborhood? Like, where's our community garden? Where's our street art? You know, where is our piece of little slice of heaven, you know, like a place where we feel safe, where we have really cool amenities, because we see that in other parts of the city, right? And we're not seeing it here. So, unfortunately, what happened, you know, a lot of times I like to sit in the front of things. So I always used to sit in the front when I was in the audience. And just one of the members of the council just started going on a tirade, really about how, you know, there needs to be law and order, which I totally understand. But, you know, we're talking about two individuals. And we shouldn't have someone who is, you know, the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Like, we have due process, and that is law and order, is due process, right? So I just, and you're not supposed to do this, and I did apologize for it, but I yelled out and I said, you know, he had his hands up, and this council member then started yelling at me and telling me, you need to teach your community how to respect the sheriffs. And, you know, when they tell you to put your hands up, put your hands up. Like, what was he supposed to do? And that is just not okay. So, you know, people had been telling me, hey, run for council, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just a hippie with my guitar. Like, this is not something that I want to do, you know? But then I saw that there was really no one was stepping up to do it. And so I decided to run. This is 2018. You know, after that meeting, I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. We'll see what happens. I was like 29, 30, right, at that time. And long story short, I had a grassroots team. A lot of them were retired teachers from Vista Unified School District, or from, you know, they were teaching at Cal State San Marcos. And we went around and we talked to people in my community. We went door to door and we talked to folks about what they wanted to see and what their experience with local government was. And I also saw, like, there needs to be constant civic education, right? Like, constant civic. And so I'm so proud of the growth that the council has had from that council that I was an audience member in to where we're at now. You know, and there's still more growth that needs to happen. But being able to have collective expression and civil discourse where we're respectful, where we don't assume the worst of folks, right? And we have a real human to human connection and conversation. Like, that's what I want every single council to be like everywhere, because that's what people deserve.
You know, I think that's a really important point that you bring up about kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt that they're coming at this from a place of wanting to improve the community. Maybe they see it differently, or they see the way to get there differently. But I have similar conversations with my team, with my board around, let's all give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
That everyone here wants the best for what we're working on. Everybody who has best of intentions. The way we get there might be different. The way we see it could be different. But everybody here is coming at this with the best of intentions. And I think that's a really great place to start in a group where you can have such varying views on things, but you still have to figure out how to make things happen. And right. So I think that's a good point that you bring up, that, you know, you can disagree, be respectful about it, but still get things done. Find places where you do agree and grow from, you know, build on that. So I think that's a really good lesson for anybody.
Collective consensus building is the right thing to do. Is it difficult?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Having thousands of personalities, right, come together, even if they all believed in the same thing, it would still be difficult.
Yeah. It's so true. Know? It's so true.
And that's just us. We're human. We're unique. We're little snowflakes, right? And I say that in the best way possible.
Yeah.
But we are unique, and we each have, we were chatting about unique ways of learning.
Yeah.
We have unique ways of communicating. Some of these are learned through, our families, and some of those ways that we communicate are not healthy, right? And so it's like also being able to move past like unhealthy ways of communicating, I think is really important. And I'll tell you, it's really difficult sometimes when I have my political hat on and I'm, sitting down with the rest of the council and we're going through a really deep discussion. Like that can be really difficult sometimes, right? Because we're so opinionated. That's why we get elected.
Right.
Because it's like, what's your opinion on this? And so
yeah,
it's
you
like,
have a strong feeling for how something should be.
Exactly.
Right.
For most things, So it's difficult, but it also is, in that challenge comes a lot of good for the community, right? And that's, at the end of the day, regardless of how tense a conversation might be between me and my colleagues, the end result that we all want is for our community to be better. And so that's why it's like, yes, give people the benefit of the doubt, but also don't forget when they show you who they really are, right? So I'll turn the other cheek, but it can be very challenging, and we just have to remember there's a human being right in front of me, and we're on this planet together. It's a miracle that we're here. And let's just try to work on the 90% of common ground that we probably have, because that extra 10%, we can fight all day and all night about it. And when we do that, we neglect the 90%.
Yeah. So that's a great segue into some of the things that have been accomplished since you've been on council. So tell me a couple of things that you're really proud of to have accomplished while you've been on council.
Ooh.
You and your colleagues together, of course.
Of course. Yeah, it's a collective effort, I will say one of the things that I am super proud of is having worked successfully with the state government and with the federal government to bring tax dollars back to Vista for infrastructure projects. We have solar panels at the Civic Center that's going to generate over 60% of what we need to run that facility. And that came through conversations that I had with our assembly member at that time, Assemblymember Tasha Berner, and I think it was interesting because I got to see internally, how the city was communicating with higher level representatives. And I don't think that we had a culture of having shovel-ready projects that we were like, this is a list of things that we want to see in our community. And I'm really proud of the fact that now we have that. And because of that, we've been successful in receiving even more funding, right? But there's so many projects that came about during that time in those conversations. And the delegation that I forced the city to do, we went and we met with the assembly member in her office, and we said, hey, we're basically, what's the best way for us to show you what our needs are and how can we get funding for these things, right? And so there's also fire station off of Old Taylor getting redone, a super critical and important fire station because it's what's called the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, right? And so you got Gopher Canyon, right? We see like during the Lilac fire, thank God the winds changed, right? But that is an area that burns a lot. And we had apparatuses that didn't even fit in the station, right? So we had this huge need, and we got $5 million. It wasn't enough.
Right.
Fire stations are super expensive to
build. But it was a start. It got you going.
Yeah, it got us going, right? And so those are different critical pieces of infrastructure that move forward. And the other thing is just being able to create this petition process for folks to look at traffic calming as a neighborhood, and it's bringing neighbors together. I think that's the second piece. I know not everybody is super thrilled about the traffic calming, but we have neighbors talking to each other, and they're saying, yes, a majority of us want people to be slower in our community because my kids are playing here.
So I have a question about
Sure.
this. I mean, I agree. There are so many streets where people go so fast. It's so dangerous. And there definitely has been improvement in the traffic calming. It seems, though, that when you go to other cities, there aren't speed bumps. And so are speed bumps kind of like the least costly option for traffic calming? Is that why we're using that tool? Are there other tools that can be used besides speed humps? Because I know we have humps, we don't have bumps. We hump, don't bump in Vista.
Right.
And so I'm just curious about that, and if that's really the main tool or if there are other ways.
There are so many tools.
Yeah. Because it seems like that seems to be
That's what people
easy and fast and cheap.
That's what, and people, when you talk about traffic calming, that's the first thing that they think about, right? And so we went through this process to ensure that our emergency routes aren't,
Impacted,
unnecessarily, encumbered by these devices. But we have recently added, a raised pedestrian table, right, to that list that you can petition
That's
for.
on Main. We have one on Main Street.
Right by the Avo. You see people using it all the time, right? And so that was a pilot. The other pilot was Newport and Townsite. And so, sorry, y'all, that was my pilot project that I put forward, and it was the first two that we did in the city.
Are they effective? Do they work?
Yes.
Okay.
They're great. And there's more of that we can do. Not everything needs to be a speed hump. And I think at some point, I just talked to our city manager about this. I want to continue to evaluate, is this helping us get to this Vision Zero goal? Is it helping to ensure that we have 0 fatalities and 0 injuries on our streets? That's a lofty goal, but we should see, if we're implementing traffic calming, right, and it's working, that we reduce fatalities and serious injuries, right? And that's also, we lowered the speed limits in different areas because we have a new tool that allows us to do that. Because when you go more than 35 miles per hour and you have a collision, especially if you're colliding with an individual, a pedestrian, there is 80 to 90% chance it's going to be a fatality. So
that's
the lower,
significant.
the lower the speed limit, the better. I think at 35%, you're around 80%.
Wow.
And the higher you go, it's just forget it.
Yeah.
But that safe zone is really, honestly, around 20 to 25. And not everything can be that, right? But
those major arterial, the major roads, you got to get people moving.
Right.
But on the,
you need to have circulation.
But in your neighborhood, I see what you mean.
And how can we reimagine that public right of way? That's all public. That's all public, and it's all asphalt, and it's all for one thing. So can we have people safely bike and walk and drive, right? And maybe be in a golf cart.
I want a golf cart. That sounds fun.
They're street legal.
Yeah.
There's street legal versions of this golf cart, and you can use them here in the state of California as long as the roads are 35 miles per hour or less. And so, that's one of the things too, if we want to have a neighborhood electric vehicle, a little shuttle, anything like that, we need to make sure that we're also providing the environment for that shuttle to even be able to exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So what are some things coming up that What do you think are the biggest issues that Vista's facing that you want to work on in the next year or so?
Yeah. Okay. So we have a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I don't think gets enough conversation is the extreme heat that our community is going to be feeling. So that's kind of, as the climate crisis continues, it's just something that's going to happen. We see our temperatures continue to rise. I really worry about our most vulnerable populations, right? Our seniors, our children.
Many homes don't have air conditioning.
No, they don't.
Right.
And it's really expensive to run it, right? And, getting something like a heat pump they're really costly. But once you install it, it's like it's a different way of heating and cooling. So where do you go for refuge, right? That's where I think the wave is a super critical asset for our community, and why I have fought for it to stay in the public domain, because that's one of the very few pools that people have access to, right? But even that is like a huge discussion. How do we bring the repairs to modernize it with the budget that we have, right? And so I invite everybody to come to the workshop that's going to be happening in the future.
I think it's June 5th.
And yes, and this is one of those things that collectively we need to have more conversation about and figure out what's the short-term, mid-term, and long-term goal.
Right.
And how can we pay for the short term to ensure that the restrooms are updated, right? That, we have a gas heater from like the 70s or whatever, heating it all up, right? There's so many different things that we can look at. And the fact that in the first day, we actually sold out, it was like $100,000 worth of private event space. So what does that tell you? That we have an opportunity as a city to look at what is selling and be a little bit more savvy and say, okay, how do we expand this part of the wave so that we can reduce the subsidy, right? And so there's just different creative ways of thinking. And I think that we've been like locked into this one way of thinking for a long time. So that's the wave is critical for me. The climate crisis and how we are able to have a cooler city with cool zones, tree canopies, right? A lot more, maybe there's just a lot more improvements in the public right of way, like deep paving, where we're having some more California native plants and letting that water sink into the soil instead of runoff untreated into the ocean. Like, we need to start rethinking about those types of things. They cost money, right? Which is why, can we put those in our climate action plan? Like, is this something that we can strive for if there's funding available, right? So those are some critical parts of our city that we need collective input. Then there's the whole budgeting process, right? Government
That's happening soon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the process right now, actually.
It's in the process, right? And we do a 2-year budget now. And so, governments all over the place have plateauing or declining sales tax, right? Because guess what? The economy has not been good for a long time. Honestly, people never even recovered from the 2008 great financial crisis, right? So as a millennial, I've seen, a great financial crisis, a pandemic, and now whatever we're in right now, right? So we really need to be strategic about how we're going to reduce our operating costs, right? That's where solar panels come in. Is there battery storage that we can do, right? To couple with that solar, is there more parking lots that we can produce more energy, right? Can we lower people's bills through Clean Energy Alliance by producing in more local community solar and storing it? These are all things that we can do for the city and for people together, right? So I think the budget is critical, and also finding ways to trim the fat in that way, right? Where we're being strategic, having strategic investments that are going to have a return for the citizens and for the city as a whole.
Wow, that's great. you've talked a lot, you've shared a lot about trying to improve Vista and thinking about young people and the youth. And I know that you've been great about engaging our youth. And so what advice would you have for a young person who's interested in making their community a better place?
Yeah. Okay. So, one, I know it's really difficult to think that you can make a difference sometimes because you're just one person, but it literally just takes one person. So if you see a problem and you have an idea or a solution, or you just kind of want to talk about it and understand the problem more, who can you turn to that is a mentor, right? And that's folks like me, and you, like, we need to ensure that we're providing mentorship for our youth and
Absolutely.
young adults.
I agree with you 100% on mentorship is where it's at.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, there's so much talent here in Vista, and to be able to enhance someone's career opportunities at an early age is what we need to do. We need to do that as a city. We need to do that, as the chamber. We need to do that as a school district. We need to do that as private companies, right? Like, everybody is part of growing this village to be the best that it can be. And I love what we've been able to do with providing that seed money, right, for the internship program. And you have taken it on and just grown it, and it's just incredible. And like, how do we do more of that?
Right.
How do we have more apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships? I know that folks like myself who grew up in a family where we didn't have folks that were employed in like these other high level, like tier 1 jobs, right? Like, you don't know that they exist out there. So how do you bring that?
The exploration and the exposure to other careers is so huge.
It's huge. Yeah. It's huge. And just even knowing at an early age that exists and that path exists, that maybe you can be a city manager, right? Or that maybe you can be a city attorney, or that maybe you can be an entrepreneur that is hiring thousands of people and paying them a living wage and creating generations of wealth for folks and breaking poverty cycles for folks. Like, that is huge, and we want that here in Vista.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Snaps to that. Snaps to that. That's
for
awesome.
Sure.
Well, as we're wrapping up our time, I'm curious if there's anything that we didn't talk about that you really want to share, that you want to make sure people know about you or about the city or about the council. Yeah.
I am just an open book. So, and I have an open door. Please, if anybody wants to connect, reach out to me. Let's have more conversations. I do have a day job, and so my schedule sometimes is just wild, but I will always make time to meet with folks. I do it all the time. I still go door to door. So if I come to your door,
answer.
Open
the door.
I'm there because I want to let you know that maybe there's a park coming to you, right? Or maybe there's a really important council meeting that has to do with your little neck of the woods, right? Whatever the case might be. So you'll see me out in the community all the time.
Great. Okay, before we close out, I always ask every guest the same few rapid fire questions. So my first is, tell me a book that you recommend. What's a book that people should read?
Wow. So I've been thinking about this question. It's a little bit difficult because I love to read. I also wish that I read more fiction, but I kind of stay in the nonfiction realm. But one of the books that was just so incredible that I read, this was a long time ago now, actually in high school, was The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Talk about just like this incredible journey in like so many fields, right? And then I go to college and I run into a book when I was taking a civil rights course called Black Power, right? The Politics of Liberation. And it's a 1967 book. And, a lot of things were happening around that time.
Yeah, it's a big time period
big
for
time
civil
period.
rights.
And I found it, like, I was like, why did I have to wait until college to read this? Like, I wish I could have been exposed to this a little bit earlier. It was just fascinating to me. Like, there is all this data and statistics showing, you know, how the mortality rates, even for Black women, were so much higher, right? All these different data points. And I was just always curious about that and understanding, like, demographics and socioeconomic situations and how we can improve that together collectively. But we have to be vulnerable and have that really difficult conversation that these things are happening. So how do we come together and rectify that? Because it's not fair.
Yeah.
Right. So those are 2 books. And then I have to throw one in. It's called One Straw Revolution. And Fukua, I can't remember the author, but One Straw Revolution.
I'll put it in the show notes.
It's amazing. And it's just really about observing the natural world and how we need to be in sync with it more. And we could still produce, you know, crops and stuff like that. And so anyways, I took liberty with 3.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
I'll allow it. Okay. Okay. So tell me, what's your jam? Tell me a song you love.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So anything from Ben Harper, I'm like a huge fan.
I love Ben Harper.
Yeah. He just like has so many different sides to his musical talent. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with
it's hard.
It's difficult.
You can just say Ben Harper. That's okay.
Like, but I'm thinking about, so he has a live version of High Tide or Low Tide. It's a cover, and he does it with Jack Johnson, and it's just like incredible.
I've heard it. It's really good.
That's my favorite one.
Love it. Good answer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Corinna, what inspires you?
People.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like there's so much opportunity in just having a conversation with someone. And I've seen that in my life, you know, like we are all our own storybook. And it's like, let's read a few pages, right? And be vulnerable enough to have those conversations where you can get to read a few of those pages, right? And it's not just the table of contents or something like that.
Yeah. You know, I love that you've kind of shown me today that you really are someone who cares a lot about data and the details and the numbers, but also where the heart comes in with that too. And so I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
My last question for you is, tell me a Vista business that deserves a shout out.
Oh man, it's a little bit difficult. Okay, so in my district, you'll never guess it. You're in the Stater Brothers parking lot. Jack in the Box is there in the corner. Vista High School is just across the street. And there's this amazing place called Pizza and More.
I knew you were going to say Pizza and More as soon as you said Stater Brothers. It's so good. It's really good.
And Lola and her team are just incredible. She's also a Vista person,
born and raised.
Yeah. And you know, lives here in Vista and like went to Vista High School. So and was also knows the previous owner, because I think they went to high school together. But yeah, Pizza and More, if you haven't tried it, I don't even know if I've ever gotten to their pizza because I'm still on the more.
I was just going to say, it's really more of the more.
Yeah.
The pizza's good, but there's more of the more. So I agree with you. Great restaurant, great spot, affordable prices, like quality.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
I feel like we could
me.
spend so much more time talking all day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our guest, Corinna Contreras, council member for District 1. And thank you for listening to Velocity. If you like what you heard, please tell a friend and subscribe. Help us move Vista forward with velocity. The Vista Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization that serves as a catalyst for business growth. Find us online at vistachamber.org.